Hello. I wish you doing well. Let's get started. In popular culture, the term paranoia is usually used to describe a person's excessive anxiety about his safety and well-being, and sometimes means that a person holds persecutory beliefs about a threat to his or her property, often associated with conspiracy theory and theory. Paranoia is the central idea of a group of psychotic disorders characterized by systematic delusions and a non-psychotic, zoranic, disorder. The ancient Greeks used the word paranoia in the same sense as the common modern term meaning insanity. Since then its meanings abounded. It came at the end of the 19th century in the sense of delusional psychosis, in which delusions slowly evolved with a logically sound, difficult to analyze and complex system without hallucinations and without general personal disorder. In modern psychiatry, the term paranoia is used for all severe and rare cases of well-established and chronic delusions. All remaining cases are called paranoid disorders. Some psychiatrists have questioned the legitimacy of paranoia as a diagnostic category, claiming that what was previously considered paranoia is actually a diverse group of schizophrenia or schizophrenia. Clinical paranoia is the most severe, a rare mental illness, in which the person believes that others are unfair or seek to harm him without evidence. And he does not feel that he is suffering from paranoia at all because he is certain of his beliefs. It is difficult to determine if a person thinks paranoid. Sometimes his thoughts and beliefs seem unreasonable, but this does not mean that he has paranoia. Most people have a certain culture or unnatural beliefs such as belief in magic, alienation, or conspiracy theory, which is not universal to everyone. These beliefs are not considered paranoia unless they cause a sense of threat and terror. What is considered a Zorian idea for a person may be a logical reaction at another, and the matter depends greatly on the environment of the idea and on life experience. For example, if a person has a loving and supportive family and feels that a family member wants to harm him, can be considered an unreasonable and paranoid person. But if a person suffers from severe relationships with his family and has been threatened by a relative in the past, his feelings of a threat from a family member may make sense given the difficult situation. But if a person feels that the government is spying on him, it may seem illogical and false to the rest of the people around him. However, if this person is a political refugee in that country after being persecuted by his or her government, they may understand how he or she feels. And symptoms of paranoia: a defensive and hostile position. Speed of anger. A victim's belief that he is always right and difficult to relax or leave a defensive posture. Inability to compromise, forgive, or accept criticism. Inability to trust others. Read hidden meanings in other people's regular actions. Paranoia: a severe lack of sleep. Not sleeping overnight may not cause paranoia, but if the person stays sleepless most of the time, here the alarm will ring. Where he does not think clearly, he tends to clash with others or not to understand them. He begins by looking at people as if they were working against him even though they behave as usual, and if a person stays sleepless for a long time, he will even start seeing and hearing things that are not there. Doctors call them hallucinations, so adults should sleep at night between 7 to 9 hours to remain alert and in good mental health. Anxiety. When the level of stress in a person's life rises, the feeling of suspicion towards other people grows, and anxiety may not necessarily cause negative things like illness or loss of work. Even a happy occasion such as wedding can create a kind of anxiety that evokes Zoranic ideas coinciding with pleasure. Psychiatric disorders. A person's affliction with a personal Zoranic disorder: he is unable to trust others. It may also cause him to have unrealistic negative thoughts about people such as they do not like him, make him a fool, and so on. His schizophrenia or borderline personality disorder. All of this may lead to real clinical paranoia in some cases. And memory loss. Certain diseases, such as Alzheimer's and other forms of aging dementia, can change the brain in several ways, such as making the person more suspicious of others or convinced that they intend to make them worse. Paranoia is like a bipolar disorder associated with a group of other symptoms that are not always easy to treat depending on the severity of thoughts and delusions. Here's what you should know. It is not easy to identify because paranoia is a symptom of a range of other symptoms, including bipolar disorder, placebo or schizophrenia. It may be caused by restlessness and a severe reaction to the drug, or brain toxicity due to drugs, alcoholism, or other types of poisoning. Paranoia is clinically described as a way of thinking or a state of anxiety that reaches the level of illusion. It includes anxious feelings and thoughts often associated with threats or persecution. Paranoia can range from exaggerated suspicion to the belief that others behave in a negative way towards the injured person, to a more serious situation and unreasonable suspicion that can cause feelings of anger and deception. For others, it develops into excessive anxiety, a strong defense against imagined criticism, a preoccupation with ulterior motives and fear of misinformation and deception. Those with milder symptoms of paranoia can work and function while others suffer from hallucinations, unrealistic delusions and even psychosis, mental disorders. A delusional disorder is a disorder of thinking that can be described as clinging to ostensible but unrealistic beliefs. For example, a person feels being pursued or monitored. But when a person turns away from reality and experiences hallucinations and slasher delusions where he sees and hears things that are not present, this can be described as a mental disorder or a seizure. In the case of true psychosis, the Zoranic beliefs are well established and the injured person does not trust even the closest close relatives of his family members. The general meaning is that paranoia is a mental disease represented by mental delusions based on persecution of a certain type that the patient supports and defends in an orderly manner with enthusiasm and determination. These illusions occupy a small or large part of his mind in an attempt to expand to include the mind, and these illusions are linked and become in harmony with its subject and are hallucinations auditory, audio or visual. May affect madness suspicions entire societies. It is a collective disease and must distinguish between calmness as a disease and delirious behavior characterized by stubbornness and excessive adherence to opinions and not to admit wrong and arrogance and return failure to the intervention of others. It is also necessary to differentiate between delirium and delusional schizophrenia, because the patient with delirium is inseparable from reality, but he interprets it according to his opinions. But a delusional schizophrenic is an anomaly with strange anomalies separate from reality. Also, there is a difference between a patient with delirium and a maniac. The first is his illusions are organized and confirmed and his thoughts are constant and permanent and he is anxious. As for the maniac, his illusions are fleeting and his thoughts are soaring, and he is noisy, agitated, and not. The most famous people who suffered from schizophrenia and paranoia: John Nash. John Nash is an American mathematician who works in differential geometry, game theory, and partial differential equations. Schizophrenia. James Beck Gordon. James Beck Gordon is a Grammy Award-winning songwriter and musician. James was arrested at Atascadero Governmental Hospital after he killed his mother for hearing voices in his head ordering him. He was sentenced to 16 years imprisonment and diagnosed with schizophrenia during the trial. Lionel Aldridge. Julian Aldridge was a professional American football player for the historic Green Bay Packers teams in the 60s, and after his retirement Aldridge worked as a sports analyst in Milwaukee until he developed schizophrenia in the early 70s. And he was characterized by severe paranoia and irritability, and it was difficult for him to communicate with others, and after 10 years of untreated and several years of homelessness, Lionel ultimately fought the disease when he finally accepted treatment with the help of some of his friends. Mary Todd Lincoln. Mary Todd Lincoln was the wife of the 16th U.S. President Abraham Lincoln, and was the First Lady of the United States. She was well educated and shared her husband's aspirations. She was known to be suffering from schizophrenia. In February 1862 her son Willie died at the age of 11, and after his death Mary made a large sum of money to get the spiritualists to deliver her to her deceased son, which led to spending a lot of money on the family. Bob Mosley Sr., songwriter and guitarist James Robert Mosley was born on December 4, 1942, and developed his musical abilities to a professional level. In 1969 Mosley joined the U.S. Marines, but was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was homeless in the mid-1990s, but he joined his band to display it in New York in August 1997. Rose Williams is the sister of playwright Tennessee Williams, and Rose had schizophrenia at an early age. And as was common at the time, Rose was booked and spent most of her adult life in mental hospitals, and when treatments were unsuccessful, she showed more tendencies to paranoia. Now we done, my dear friends. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.